Hello, this video is going to kind of mimic playing a little game, a guessing game, and we are also going to review what an indefinite loop is. We're going to look at comparing strings with a dot equals command, and we are going to look at compound conditions using an AND statement. So to start off with, this particular program is just a little guessing game where I want you to guess my pet's name. So if you guess that my pet is named Fido, it's nope, not Fido. If you guess my pet's name is named Brutus, nope. If you guess it is Mary, nope. And you can keep guessing and keep guessing until you enter button. And then I'm going to tell you that you got it correct. Now, there's a couple of things about this that might make this extremely annoying, and that if you were to keep guessing forever, there's no way for you to break out of this loop. Okay, this is an indefinite loop. You didn't know how many times I was going to execute that. You didn't know how many times it was going to take. I happen to know the answer is button, and so I was lucky. So there's a couple of things going on in this code. So let's take a look. First of all, we are using a scanner object in order to get interactive input, and I have set my pet's name. You aren't supposed to see that, so you don't actually know what the answer is going to be. But my cat is named Button. And then we're going to let the user input a guess. Those are both strings. And so when I want to create a scanner object, it's like what I did before, but this time I'm going to use in dot next line, which gets whole line and enters a string. Okay, enters the whole line. Well, we're only inputting one word down here, but it would get the whole entire line if I typed more than one sentence, and that's what user guess gets assigned. So I got in dot next line, and then I'm going to trim that. And what trim does is it allows me to cut off any extra spaces. So let's say I execute the code and somebody enters space, 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 and they enter Fido. And then in order to actually see what that's doing, I would need to do what's called an echo check, or to print out what the user inputted. And so this is actually a good debugging technique. So if I want to print out what the user inputted, I'm going to just put in here system.out.print user guess, and I'm going to not use the trim feature, and I'm going to comment it out from here and here, and we're going to try this again. So this time if I enter after we take care of that error message, if I hit execute and I enter space, 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 Fido, and it prints out, what it does here is it actually prints space, 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 Fido, and then it says guess my pet's name on the next line because I forgot to use a print line there. And then this is also going to be a print line, is what I want to do. Actually, I just want the guess my pet's name to be a print so that it's on the same the prompt is on the same line as what I'm going to enter for my output, and we will attempt to execute this again. A couple of things while we're waiting for that to execute. I don't know if I need to actually stop the execution. Oh, there it goes. So if I type in space, 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 Harry, so my pet's name is Harry, except I spelled it wrong, but it doesn't matter. Then see, it's going to show you that it actually keeps all of those spaces in there. So there's no way that if anybody puts a space in at the beginning and types in the pet's name Brutus, even though that's my pet's name, no, my pet's name is not Brutus. Let's try that again. If I type in space, space, button, it's not going to be guessed. And if I type in button and I do space, 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 space afterwards, it's not going to compare those two. It's going to think that it's wrong because it's also including those spaces in there. Okay, so what we need to do is we need to chop off the leading and the trailing spaces, and we do that by using trim. So if I use trim, it goes ahead and chops off the spaces. And I'm going to do that in a couple of places. The other thing I'm going to do is this. I'm going to change everything to lowercase because I know that my answer is in lowercase, so when I have the user input something, I want it to be changed to lowercase. So I'm going to copy and paste that line of code up here. And then a couple other things that's happening here. I've got this whole section of code before the while loop, and that's because when you're running the while loop, you've got to actually prompt the user before the loop, because you have to basically, remember, initialize your loop control variable. So you have to have this prompt here for the user, and then they input the guess, and then we trim it to cut off all the extra, removes the extra spaces, is what that does, and then we make it all lowercase. So that if somebody inputs, if we execute and somebody inputs, even if they input a capital with button, then they're going to say, hey, you got it, good job. So they're going to, that eliminates the having to worry about checking for uppercase, lowercase, etc. So I'm just going to check, I'm going to take the user's input, I'm going to change it all to lowercase, and then I'm going to compare it. So several things that just kind of went on there. But we inputted from the user, we took off the extra spaces, we changed it to lowercase, and then we do the comparison. So now the comparison is with strings, and in order to check equality with strings, you do not use double equals, okay? That's used for numeric data. And so we have to use a special built-in method that's called dot equals. And the format for the dot equals is that you have a string, dot equals is the method, and then you have the string, I'll say string 2. So you have this first string that you want to compare it with, and then inside here you have the second string. So it's going to compare, if I put this as string 1, it's going to compare string 1 with string 2. If they are equal, it returns true. So I want this code to execute as long as they are not equal. So if they are equal, that's going to test for equality. So when I run the code, if I enter anything besides button, that's going to be false. Well, I want it to execute again, so then I have to use my negation symbol, the exclamation point here, to change that logic. So that's going to be not false, or which is true. So whenever I get this wrong, it's going to execute the loop again, is what's going to happen. Now again, this is an indefinite loop because I don't know how many times it's going to, how many guesses it's going to take. Also, it could get really, really annoying if I let this go on forever and ever, because it's really kind of hard. You wouldn't probably guess that my pet's name is Button. And so another thing that we can do is to create another variable in here that we're going to count the guesses every time that we execute this code. So we're going to start it at 0. And as soon as a user makes a guess, I'm going to take count guesses, and I'm going to add 1. And the reason I'm going to do that is so that I'm only going to let the user have like 5 guesses. So in order to determine whether or not I execute again, I'm going to put in what's called a compound condition, and I'm going to say, okay, as long as I don't have the correct pet, and as long as my counts for the number of guesses is less than or equal to 5. So I'm only going to give them 5 guesses. Actually, if I want to start at 5 guesses, I need to start at 1, and then it's going to increment. So that's going to only give them 5 guesses. So if I execute this code, and I guessed 5 times, Bob, Sam, Mary, Fred, tic-tac-toe. It says, oh, I need to guess one more time. How many did I guess? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. It should have failed. My pet's name is, oh my goodness, I'm running out of names. Barney. And it says, oh, you got it. So a couple of things are kind of going on here. Number one, I have an off by 1 error, because if I only wanted 5 guesses, I need to make sure then that I just do less than 5 here, because it doesn't actually get to 5 until that last time through. And so then the other thing that's going on, which is really kind of still annoying, is that it prints that I got it correct when I didn't. And so what I have to do then is outside that loop, I've got to put in a decision statement that says if the number of guesses is less than or equal to 5, that means that they got it, because they got the answer in the correct number of guesses. Otherwise, I want to tell them, hey, sorry, but you didn't get it correct. Why don't you come back and try again sometime? So if I paste that in, we're going to then say, sorry, try again later. So now this time, if I execute the code, and I really don't want to do 5 guesses, so I'm going to make it like 3, okay? And then this would have to be 3. Have to change all of those. And I execute the code, and we make 3 bad guesses after common error, reached into file while parsing, which means I added extra curly braces in here, and I forgot to add in one more. So let's take a look. Let's execute this code, see if that's going to work. And no, it does not. So we've got, can't find the symbol number of guess. That's because I typed it wrong. It's count guesses. So where am I using that at? Count guesses. Where's that number of guesses? Right here. And if you want to prevent typos, it's best if you do a Control-C to copy, Control-V to paste. Okay? Control-V to paste. If I do Control-V, and then I hit execute, then this time this should run. What's my pet's names? Bob, Mary, Sam, and it says I got it right. So I definitely have something incorrect, and that's another off by 1 maybe. I have to check to see if it's less than 3. Execute again. Sam, Mary, Bob, and it says sorry, try again. So I have to then make sure that I'm not actually checking to see if it's equal to 3. So as long as my number of guesses is smaller than 3, which means I guessed 1, 2, 3 times when I went through that loop, then we should be good. Now, if I go back, there's one more thing that I wanted to do. I was doing what was called an echo check, like it printed the animal's name again. I don't need it to print that the user's guess every single time. So I'm going to take that out, because that's not a prompt for the user there. The prompt is asking them to input the pet's name. I'm going to execute that code. We're going to enter Brutus, and then we're going to enter button, and I got it. So it appears that my code now works. If I try it one more time just to see if I have 3 tries. Banana for my cat's name. I spelled that wrong. Brutus. That didn't work. And lollipop. So now I should get that I got it wrong, because I updated my 3 errors. And that is going to be the end of this demo. Went a little bit long, but we covered lots of things. We worked with an indefinite loop. We learned how to do string comparison with equals. We introduced the compound condition using and we introduced this idea of using a counting variable in order to help control the loop as well. So I actually have 2 things controlling my loop: whether or not I get the pet's name correct, and whether or not the guess is correct. That should do it.